Good morning everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So here today we are just going to be doing simplification of radicals and surds. So now when we are simplifying, let's say for example we have the square root of 16. So what is the square root of 16? We know by 4 feet the square root of 16 is equal to 4. Now what is the other way of more like having this? So the square root of 16 can also be written as this should be equal to the square root of 4 times 4. I haven't changed anything. So now the property of radical is that the square root can be distributed between numbers. So this is the same as the square root of 4 times the square root of 4, like that. So we are going to have square root of 4 is 2, square root of 4 is also 2, which will give us 4. Even if we have the square root of, let's say, 64, the square root of 64 is the same as having the square root of 16 times 4, in such a way that I can distribute this. Then I'll have the square root of 16 times the square root of 4. So the square root of 16 will give us 4, then the square root of 4 will give us 2. So we are going to have 4 times 2, it will give us 8. So this is the properties of square roots, or whichever roots that you're dealing with. So with this background, we can now be able to simplify as many problems as possible. So let's say for our first problem, we have the square root of 12. So the square root of 12, look for one at least perfect number, perfect square root. So square root of 12 is the same as 4 times 3. You can't use 6 times 2 because there is no perfect number that has got a square root there. So you can separate the square root. So we have the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. So the square root of 4 is 2. So we are going to have 2 times the square root of 3, which gives us 2 times the square root of 3 is just the same 2. Then we have what is inside to be square root of 3, like that. Let's look at our next problem. Let's say we have the square root of our 98. So square root of 98, look for one number that has got a square root. In this case, we are going to use 49. So square root of 98 is the same as the square root of 49 times a 2, like that. Then we are going to have this is the same as the square root of 49 times the square root of 2, like that. So that the square root of 49 gives us a 7 times the square root of a 2, like that. Then we are going to finally have 7 times the square root of 2. It will be 7 square root of 2, like that. So that means to say we have simplified that one. Let's advance it a bit. Let's say we have the cube root of 54. So don't let this scare you. It's still the same approach. So this one is the same as, now here we are going to look at a number that has got a perfect cube root. So we are going to have, this is the same as the cube root of 27 times 2. 27 times 2 is equal to 54. So this is the same as having the cube root of 27 times the cube root of a 2, like that. So we are going to have the cube root of 27, it will give us 3. Then we have times the cube root of 2, like that. Then we are going to combine them. So 3 times the cube root of 2, it will just be the same 3. Then we are going to have the cube root of 2. So we have simplified that one. Let's try also. So we have looked at that. Let's try also the cube root. Let's say we have the cube root of our negative 16 x to the power 3. So same approach. So we are going to look at a perfect number that has got a cube root. In this case, it will be, so when you look at this negative, you can split this. So this one is the same as having the cube root of negative 1 times 16 can be broken down into 8 times 2, because we know 8 has got a perfect cube root, which is a 2. Then we have times our x to the third, like that. Then we are going to distribute our cube root, so it will be the cube root of, beginning with -1, times the cube root of our 8 times the cube root of our x to the power 3, like that. Then the cube root of -1 is just -1 itself. The cube root of 8 is a 2. Then here, since this is the power 3, this power and the cube root will cancel, so we are going to have times our x there. So we have times x. So finally, -1 times 2 times x, we are going to have our -2x, like that. We have our -2x. Oh, we have forgot to account for this, so we are going to have times 3 cube root of a 2, even here times cube root of a 2 here, then it will just return. So this times this times this, it will give us -2. Then we have times the cube root of a 2, like that. So after doing this, it means to say we have simplified that one. Let's try the other one. Let's say we have the cube root of let's say we have the cube root, or the square root, sorry, of 75x to the power of 3. So how do you deal with this one? So we look for a number that has got a square root. In this case, it's 25. So it will be the square root of, this is the same as 25 times 3 times x to the power of 3. So we can put times x to the power of 3 times our x to the power of 3, like that. So here we are going to have the same as, we can split now. This is the same as having the square root of 25 times the square root of 3 times, if you want with this x, you can say the square root of our x squared, square root of our x squared. Then we have times the square root of times the square root of x, times the square root of x, like that. So we are going to have the square root of 25 gives us 5. Then we have times square root of 3. Then we have times square root. Here this power and this one will cancel, so we have times x there, times the square root of our x, like that. So we have 5 times x. So what is outside multiplies what is outside. What is inside has got the capability of multiplying what is inside. That's why we can go back. If we do 25 times 3, it's still 75. In this case, what is outside multiplies what is outside. So we are going to have our 5x. Then we have our square root of our 3 times the square root of our x. So what will happen is that we have 5. Then we are going to have the square root of 3 times x. We are going to have our 3x, like that. Yeah, so we have x there. We have put our 5x, like that. So let's look at, let's say we have the fourth root. Let's say we have the fourth root of 48. So if we have the fourth root of 48, the approach is the same. We are going to be having, so the fourth root of 48 will be equal to, we are going to look at a number that has got a perfect square root. In this case, we can use 16 times 3. 16 times 3 will give us 48. So we can now be able to split. So when we split, we are going to have the fourth root of our 16 times the fourth root of our 3, like that. So the fourth root of 16, the number you multiply 4 times to give you 16, is a 2. Then we have times the fourth root of our 3, like that. So we are going to have our 2 times this, it will be 2 cube root of our 3, like that. So let's look at our last problem. So yeah, we have made a simple mistake. instead of writing the fourth root. Yeah, so let's look at this one. So we have the cube root of 3. So now here, this is the same as having the cube root of, let's split. So we have this 2 to the power 5 is the same as 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the power of 2. So that when I add, take one base and add the powers, I'll go back to 5. Then we have times x to the power of 3. Then this y to the power of 4 is the same as y to the power of 3 times y, like that. So after doing that, the reason why I have raised it to the power 3, because I know it's the cube root. So I can now split. So this is the same as having cube root of, we have 2 to the power of 3 times the cube root of a 2 to the power of 2 times the cube root of, we have our x to the power of 3, then times the cube root of our y to the power of 3, like that. Then we are going to have times our cube root of our y, like that. Then we are going to cancel this. We are going to cancel this and this one. Then we are going to remain with a 2, like that. So we have 2 times the cube root of our 2 squared, which is our 2 times 2 will be equal to 4. Then we have times this one and this one goes, which is more like cancelling this one. We are going to remain with what is inside, which is our x. This one and this one goes. We are going to have our y. Then we have times the cube root of our y, like that. So we are going to have what is outside can multiply. So we have our 2 times x times y. This will give us our 2xy. Then we have times the cube root of our 4. We also have times the cube root of our y. So what is inside can multiply. So we have first, we have 2xy. Then we have 4 times y. As long as they are both inside and they have the same roots, they can multiply. So it will be the cube root of our 4y, like that. So this is the expected answer. Thank you very much for watching my video. Hope you would like, subscribe and share for more.